Today, I am taking you back to my origin stories. The time I flushed Plan B and got pregnant as a teenager, married the tattooed guy from high school, got chased down by meth heads in the Ozarks of Missouri, and somehow still managed to end up back down here in my dream location in Florida, healed, thriving, but also accidentally maybe writing a spicy smut novel that I definitely did not have on my bingo card. So buckle up because this is episode 2. I'm so glad that you're here. If you're into the wild, the random, or the OMG, where things are unfiltered, unpredictable, and just a little bit unhinged, then you're in the right place. This is the podcast that feels like getting a 2 a.m. voice note from your chaotic bestie, and you never know what you're going to get. And I upload weekly ish. So if that sounds like something you're into, go ahead and follow. Like you're deep stalking your ex's new girlfriend's Instagram at 2 a.m. and you accidentally just liked a 2017 pic. No judgment here. All right, so let's dive in. If you are here wondering what the heck this podcast is actually all about, what you just stumbled into, who I am, and how I got to be this chaos sipping weirdo here streaming through your earbuds on this chaotic little corner of the internet, I am so glad you're here. I'm happy to introduce myself, and I'm going to give you a peek behind the veil today, a little bit about my personal origin story. Like, who am I? Where did I come from? And how the heck did I get to be where I am today? And a little bit about kind of just like a teaser of all of the things that have happened on this wild ride that have led me to the person I am today. And let me tell you, it has been a ride. And I think this is really going to set the tone, and it's going to help you see a little bit of a preview on what's to come in some of the upcoming episodes, because I can't break down all these stories. This is just going to be like a highlight reel, like the headlines, and then you know kind of what to expect. And you can even request if you're like, oh my gosh, tell that story. There's loads of them. Like we could dive into them for literal days. So you're going to get to see kind of some of the things that I can talk about on Storytime with Sara, just from my own personal life, and also, while sprinkling in other people's stories in the upcoming episodes, which is going to be fun. And just a reminder, this podcast is not just me talking to you. This is really a conversation. It's a community. Like I said, I want you to find your friends here. I want you to find your people, other people who are just ready for unfiltered and real and raw and behind the scenes. And so you're going to find that in the listeners lounge. So by the way, just a shameless plug, if you have not yet, head on over to Storytime with Sara. That's storytimewithsara.com. No H on Sara, just Sara. So storytimewithsara.com. And if you have not yet, make sure you click on the little tab that will take you over to the listeners lounge. You guys, we had 50 people, 50 people in the listeners lounge in the first 24 hours after the very first episode dropped last week. Like, what? Did we accidentally just start a cult? I mean, I don't know, but we might be onto something here, because that is unheard of. And it was so cool. Last week I was sitting here, a week ago, last Thursday is when the podcast episode launched and the listeners lounge opened up, and I wasn't ready, and it was messy and not how I thought it was going to go, but exactly how it should have. And it was just so cool to hear from all of you and to see you tagging me in Instagram and on Snap Stories. I love that, by the way. So if you are listening or tuning in, I love to see it. I'd love to repost that. So go ahead. You can tag me at XO Sara Michaels for Instagram, and you can find my Snap username in the show notes. But that was just super cool. So if you haven't yet, come on over to the listeners lounge. You can discuss the episode, and a little teaser. I'm going to tell you that throughout the episode, sometime today, there is going to be a code phrase. And for all of the listeners who enter this code phrase in the first 24 hours after it drops, you have to put it in the description of the listeners lounge. So if you comment it in there, I'm going to enter you into a drawing, and you're going to get a little something for free on me. So anyway, I thought that would be kind of fun. So there's an Easter egg hunt. So make sure you stick around to the end because you don't want to miss that. Um, so yeah, that's it. So thank you guys. And before we dive into the actual episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my day, a little bit of a personal life update, what's going on post surgery, and kind of all the things because that's been the number one thing that I've been getting. So I'm doing okay, you guys. Thank you. So I had the procedure done last Thursday where they went in and they did that balloon dilation in my throat, and they took a couple of biopsies. And the first the first day that I came out of surgery, which was last Thursday, the 22nd, the actual day that the podcast launched, I think I was kind of in this post surgery high slash pain free haze where I felt really good. I like my throat didn't hurt. And I think that's the only reason I was able to record an episode 8 hours post procedure because the next 2 days after that, holy shit. Oh, it was very sore. It was intense. I spent a lot of time on my vibration plate, but it's all right. It's right now I'm just claiming the fact that this is my body getting better, that it knows how to heal. It's going to do the things. I really do appreciate the prayers though. I do have a follow-up appointment. So if you saw my Instagram stories yesterday, you kind of saw how that went down. I'll just really briefly tell you about that because it was wild, really cool. So if you've ever dealt with appointments and referrals and insurance, you know what a freaking racket it is. Am I right? Like, so I had this emergency procedure done last Thursday. And in order to get in to see the GI specialist to have the follow up done, which is he's going to schedule a swallow study and all this stuff, how does this make sense? So, in order to get scheduled with him so that insurance will pay for it, okay, because yes, could I pay for it out of pocket? Abso-freaking-lutely. Like that's why I do what I do. It's why I make the money I make, and I teach other people to have passive income so they can pay for things if they need to. But do I want to take like my $5,000 to $10,000 out of my land budget and spend it on not particularly if I don't have to. So I was getting frustrated because obviously I pay for insurance. I want insurance to cover this as it should. And there's just this like red tape where it's like, okay, well, now to get a referral, you have to go back to your primary care provider and you have to have an appointment with them so then they can give you a referral to the GI specialist, which is stupid. It's like, are you kidding me? I just had an emergency procedure. I obviously, like, what? Okay, whatever. Anyway, so for like 3 days on and off the phone, I spent calling all these different doctors around here to try to find somebody with availability. Nobody had any openings, you guys. Like nothing that was before July, end of July, which I was not going to settle for that. Oh, so anyway, so yesterday I'm on the phone at 7 o'clock in the morning and I sat down. And before I even started dialing the phone yesterday, I set the intention and I said, okay, my goal here is that I get VIP treatment, like doors open up for me, opportunities, doing the whole mindset calibration thing. And then I said, I want an appointment no later than the 5th. Like it has to be before the 5th of June because my original plan this whole time was to go to Wisconsin and I'd have to leave no later than the 5th so I could be there to watch my mom walk her marathon on the 7th. And this is a really big deal because my mom had found out last summer that she had a congenital heart defect and she needed surgery. And without it, she was probably more than likely not going to make it. It was a really big deal. And that's why we were up in Wisconsin for wintertime and I was helping take care of her, right? So it was like a double bypass, reconstructive type situation, cabbage or whatever. So she had that done in December, and now she's going to walk in a marathon, which is amazing and incredible. And it's important to me that I'm there to support my mom because she's like my best friend. And that in and of itself is a miracle because if you're one of the listeners and you knew me in high school, you know my mom and I did not get along. It was bad. My ringtone for my mom was, I hate to admit this, I'm so sorry mom if you're listening, but it was bad. It was the Wicked Witch of the West, okay? And it was not a good experience. And so the fact that my mom and I are in the place where we're at now is just a testament to miracles, and it's awesome, and she's like my best friend. And so I want to be there to support her and watch her cross this finish line and just like fucking cheer her on because that's awesome. So that is important to me. And I don't want to miss that. And so I was like, okay, before I start making these calls, for the appointment, I'm like, okay, no later than the 5th. So I'm about 2.5 hours into making these phone calls yesterday, and it wasn't the way I felt. When you feel that like frustration bubble and you feel like you're coming up against wall after wall, and I'm just like, this isn't it. This is not the way. And I got the idea, and I had a feeling, and I'm like, okay, just call the clinic. Just call the clinic that you got referred to, where the 5-star rated GI specialist guy is. He's the only one I'm going to see around here. Just call the clinic. And so it didn't make sense because they'd already told me no. Okay. So this made no sense, but I did it. I called the clinic, and the receptionist was like, oh, who did your procedure? Okay. So I tell her who did the procedure, and she said, oh, that's actually perfect. Because and I'll tell you his name. His name's Dr. Rainier. She said, Dr. Rainier is actually working in this clinic right now. It's Dr. Twan's clinic. And she said, he's a traveling GI specialist, surgeon, and he's only here for a little bit. And you're very fortunate because he did your procedure. So because he did your procedure, we don't need to have a referral. So basically he referred me to himself because he's the one that did it. And so I literally like got a backstage pass entrance into the clinic and the appointments, and I was just like, no way. I started crying. I was so happy and so grateful. And then she told me the day of the appointment, and she's like, it's going to be next week. And I said, I don't care. I don't care what day. I don't care what time, whatever. And she goes, June 4th. Are you kidding me? June 4th at 8:30 a.m. Okay, because remember, I had set the intention and I said, okay, I need it before the 5th so I can still leave on the 5th. So everything, you guys, just aligned up perfectly. It went exactly how it should. I feel like really supported. Everything is fine. Like it feels good. And I was going back and forth with myself whether or not I was even going to continue to go up to Wisconsin for, a lot of reasons. But basically what's going on, it's a little nerve-wracking, to be honest with you. It creates an emotional response or a fear response when it's hard or challenging to swallow and it's not how it normally is. That's a challenge. And so I realized that even if I stayed down here and I waited, what would be the point? like safety, the idea of being safer down here versus up there, that safety was just an illusion. Nothing's going to change. So I really like grounded myself in my nervous system. I just really did some work in that. And I said, you know what? There are emergency rooms everywhere. If anything happens, it would be no different than down here. I have tons of support up there. I will be just fine. I can bring my soups and my smoothies and everything for this part of my healing journey. And it's going to be okay. And it's going to be fine. So I decided that I'm still going to go, which it's going to be interesting, you guys, because I don't know if you know this and but yeah, like situationship wise, okay? Like in the divorce era and with how that all happened, like Mr. Situationship was not just some rando from the bar. He is somebody that's very closely woven into my family. So that's fun. So we'll see. We don't know how that's going to go. His new girlfriend's been watching all my shit. So that's hilarious. But anyways, And I don't know if she knows or not, so this could be really interesting. So that's going to be a whole nother thing. Like, I'm sure she's nice and it'll be fine, but it's going to be weird. And so I'm just like, oh my God, let's do this. Okay. Anywho, so that's the personal life update. Thank you guys for checking in. I'm feeling okay. Energetically, I feel great. I feel really good. I feel like my throat is, it's going to be fine. I already know it. It's going to be better than ever. It's healing. It's good. I'm just in transition right now. And this entire experience has taught me a lot about really making me realize how maybe before I was eating food, not because I needed it, but because it tasted good and I wasn't nourishing my body. And now all of the crazy things that have happened since that was kind of put on the back burner, gosh, it's been wild. Like income streams popping out of nowhere, business ideas, things starting, like just psh. Anywho, so there's that. Okay, so that's my little bit of a life update that you didn't ask for, but there it is. So now let's, I guess, dive into all of the things. Like, where did I come from? How did I get to be where I'm at today? So if you're brand new here, hi, I'm Sara. I am a small town Wisconsin girlie. I was raised on, cheese curds and Busch Lights and backyard garage parties. And my very first wild adventure that ever occurred to me happened when I was just, I'd say, probably 8 years old. And our canoe tipped in the river, and I almost died and went through the dam. That was the first thing. Another thing that happened when I was a child was we were camping, and bears, like two, no, a mom cub and two bears literally ransacked our campsite. And just, there's just been like so many stories, so many things that have happened in my life. So there's that. Now, I'll go all the way up to my teenage years. When I was a teenager, I did pretty well in school, didn't really study, but I still did well. I got good grades, which I'm laughing now because it's like, what if I had actually applied myself? You guys, I'll tell you, if you went to high school with me, I might have seemed like a goody two shoes and I had that as my name, but honestly, underneath it all, I've always been a bit of a rebel. So there were a couple times where I would pull up to school and like I had beer cans and stuff rolling out of my car, or I was spiking my coffee almost daily with Baileys or like alcohol or something. And then meanwhile, I'd be going into this, National Society meeting and being the student liaison to I don't know, some education council. We were writing codes or whatever, codes of conduct for the high school. So it was like, I've always had this like little bit of a rebellious streak underneath where I'm just weird and wild and whatever. Anyways, that was me in high school, partying in cornfields and, mm-hmm, lots of stuff, lots of stories from that era. It is the reason that I'm probably more of a helicopter parent now, is because, hey, been there, done that. Okay. And yeah, so then I ended up having a graduation party that got busted by the police. And I didn't get in trouble because I was literally hanging off the side of a cliff to hide from them. And that's the night that I met my oldest son's bio dad. We did not know each other prior to that. We met, and I don't even know how that happened, but we started dating after that. And then, yeah, that was that. I ended up getting pregnant at the end of a year after I had been in college because, when you grow up in a small town, the thing that you're most excited to do is like, I can't wait to get out of here. Well, the furthest I could get away when I was a teen was getting to Minneapolis. And so that's where I went. I went to the University of Minnesota, and I have some stories of partying in the frat house and like, 3-story bubble parties and just wild, crazy shit that happened during that time. And then I realized that I did not really want to be there because I had this moment where I'm sitting in college and I was always trying to figure out how to make the most money, right? Like how can I design my life? And I remember sitting in this one class. I was sitting in this one class and it was for like physical therapy. And by the way, we got to see a corpse in for that class. Like we shouldn't have even been allowed, but our teacher took us there. And so we went to like the morgue and it was crazy. And like this one guy passed out. Anyway, that was wild. That was wild. But I was sitting in this one classroom and I remember I wasn't listening to the teacher, but I was figuring out the highest salary that I could possibly think of was this particular medical field job. And it was like some special type of physical therapist. And I realized I'm doing the calculations and I realized that on my current life trajectory, I would not have been debt free or like paying for everything or until I was like 52 years old on the current path. If I had two kids, had a mortgage, had a boat, all the things, I was going to be 52. And it was that moment that I realized I don't want to do this. And I didn't know how and I didn't know where, but that really planted the seed in my life. And then what happened next was obviously I was with my bio baby daddy, whatever. And I ended up getting pregnant. And I was 19 in the bathroom of a Quick Trip when I found out. And I had no support. I didn't tell my parents right away. I bawled my eyes out. He wanted nothing to do with anything. He didn't want me to have the baby. So I actually drove to Planned Parenthood with a friend. And long story short, I was on the edge of everything. And had I not flushed that pill when I did, I would have been on a very different life path. And I'm so thankful that I did flush that because it changed my life for the better. And now, because of that, ironically, that 16-year-old is two rooms down from me right now. He just got back last night, by the way. It's so crazy because we're from Wisconsin. We're living in Florida now. And he's going, hanging out with friends and doing teenage boy stuff. And so I'm going on a side quest, by the way. You should know that. We talked about these. These are like fun little side stories that are hidden in. Okay. Okay. So he was gone for the weekend. So he was hanging out with his friends. And so as I told you, I was a mess in high school. I did all the things. So I watch him on this little like app where I can zoom in and see where he's see where he's at, his location, and make sure he's safe. Well, I noticed, as I'm zooming in, and if you guys don't know, I want you to picture where we live. So we live on what's called we're in Santa Rosa Beach and we're on this, they consider it an island. And basically it's this long sandbar that's only about a mile and a half or 2 miles across. And it's this strip of sand right in between the Gulf of America. I'm going to piss some people off there. It's right in between the Gulf of America and the Choctawhatchee Bay on the other side. So there's and the bay is a mixture of saltwater and freshwater. So it's brackish water. And it has a direct access to the Gulf. And so there are sharks in there, there's stingrays, there's also alligators. Okay. So he's at his friend's house and I can zoom in and see. And so his friend has like a dock and boats and jet skis and they're tubing and all the things. And so he's telling me that he's out on the water. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Because I'm from Wisconsin, and the biggest thing that is swimming around is a muskie. And maybe if you have an ankle bracelet, it might mistake your foot for a fishing lure and bite you. But there's nothing in Wisconsin that's going to kill you. Okay. And to me, when I see people in Florida and they're like kayaking and paddleboarding, I'm like, y'all are nuts. No, thank you. No way. Okay. Anyway, so as he's telling me that they're out playing on the water, I'm trying to like be chill, I'm the cool mom, right? I'm okay. Yeah. Well, I wasn't feeling chill internally. I'm freaking out internally. So he's telling me what he's doing. And then I don't know if the algorithm and Facebook, they're always listening to us. Do you ever have that happen? You know what I'm talking about, where it's almost like you literally think about something and then you see an ad for it. Am I right? Or it like pops up as a recommended post on your feed. It's freaking creepy. So anyways, I was just talking to Christopher about where he was and what he was doing, and he's on Joe's Bayou and they're hanging out. I log into Facebook and I see the first post on the very top of the page from that day was alligator in Joe's Bayou in Destin. And it's this like 12 to 14 foot, they're saying 12 to 14 foot, potentially aggressive bull alligator that's been like bum rushing boats and canoes and paddle boards and stuff. And I was like, oh my God. So anyway, and then last night he comes home. I'm trying not to panic. I'm like, okay, Jesus, take the wheel. Just protect my baby. In your name I pray. Amen. Okay. All right. So he comes home last night and has the audacity to tell me that they went night swimming. And he's like, don't worry, mom. The dock lights were on. It's this U-shaped dock. He's like, the dock lights were on. So we could see in the water. We knew there were no sharks there. I was like, do you mean to tell me that you were turning yourself into a luminescent piece of fishing bait in the night? In the nighttime? Are you kidding me? I'm like, don't tell me this. My mom heart cannot handle it. I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you had fun. But like, no, sir. Okay. And you're jumping on the raft and playing King of the Raft in the bayou. Like, these Florida kids are crazy. Anyway, he had fun. He's all right. He's 2 rooms down from me. But that was a side quest to tell you my life would look very different if I never had him. But I'm so glad that I did, because that really changed my life for the better. And I can tell you that I wouldn't be where I am today and having the things that I have without him. Because yeah, it's almost like when you become a mom and you hold that little baby for the first time, you're like, I will do absolutely anything for this child. And I knew as soon as I held him that I needed to be able to figure out how to create and fund my life. And I was a single mom. I was a single teen mom. So I got pregnant at 19. I had him at 19. His bio dad had nothing really to do with anything. In fact, his parents didn't even know I was pregnant or had the baby until one of my friends from high school sent him a Father's Day card, because she just, anyway. Oh, Cody. She's a judge now, by the way, which is funny. So funny. It's just random. So there was that. And his life would look a whole lot different too, because it was just a time. Let's just say that. Yeah, it was a weird time, you guys. His life would look completely different, because I ended up having to, he wanted to go in the Air Force, and I was about 36 weeks pregnant, and I got a phone call from his friends that he was out partying with, and they had left him drunk, passed out in an alleyway. And I don't know if he was on coke at that time or not, or whatever. But yeah, because he had been in and out of doing that, and they left him because they didn't want to get in trouble. So I had to pack my pregnant ass up at 36 weeks pregnant in the middle of the night, take my purple Chevy Cavalier over to pick him up in some freaking alleyway where his friends had dumped him. And the only reason I did that was because I was like, you know what? I need you to be your best self for this baby. Otherwise, I would have let his ass reap the consequences, but I didn't. And you know what? I wish him well. And really, my only hope for him in life is that he's just a really good person, so that he's worthy of being a good dad to my son. That's it. Like, I don't fault him for the things that he did when he was 19 and not ready to step up and be a parent. But I knew that that was not the way for me. So anyway, so that was really where the start of my adventures were. And I was a single teen mom, moved back to my hometown, and then I ended up marrying the angry, tattooed, anger issue guy from my high school hometown. I don't even know how that happened. Actually, I do. I think I didn't have I guess you could say, like, standards at the time. I hadn't done personal work, and as somebody who has a baby and you see these people, all you want is like a family. That's what your heart wants. And so I just jumped at the first chance for it. And unfortunately, I decided to marry him because I didn't know what else to do. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and I was working nights and days and living off of caffeine. And I think I kind of saw that as, an answer to my prayers. At the time, I thought that I needed saving, and I didn't realize that I had the power inside of me to save myself. And so I married him. He was in the Army, and our first move, I moved from Wisconsin down to Kansas, so Junction City, Kansas. That was the start of my military wife era for 5 years. And I knew about 2 weeks after getting there and moving in with him that something was greatly, greatly wrong when he would lock himself in the room and start screaming. And I was like, oh shit. uh-oh, this is a big red flag. But I didn't trust myself enough at the time, and I didn't have that self-confidence. And I called people. I called my grandma, I called my pastor, and they were like, it'll get better. Yeah, no, I have a whole thing I can say on like church and church people and the church in general, but that's a different time, different place. Um, and so I decided to stay for 5 years. And it was weird. There's some wild things that happened. The biggest blessings I got out of it are obviously my two kids and the fact that we eventually got stationed in Florida at not Eglin. There we go. Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. And my whole life, I wanted to live by the beach. I was obsessed, you guys, with palm trees and the beach and sand. And anytime some of my rich friends would go on cruises or they'd go to beaches, I'd have them bring sand back for me. So I had a room full of sand at an early age, beach sand from the beaches all over the world. And I just loved it. And I blame my parents because when I was 18 months old, they took me on a trip down to Florida and I saw the ocean for the first time. And I think the palm trees just implanted in my soul. And I knew that someday I wanted to live by the beach, which was that's ridiculous dream, right? For somebody, I had no business dreaming that big when I was from a town that small. um, but anyway, so we ended up getting stationed here because he went to school for explosive ordnance disposal, which is the bomb squad. So the guys in the big, suits, that's down here where the training is. And so he came down here, and as soon as I crossed over that bridge, I felt like I was home and I never wanted to leave. We did end up getting restationed elsewhere, and so I was like, "Oh man." But I knew I would come back. I knew it. I knew someday I would be back here. And so I visualized it. I put it on my vision board, all the things. And eventually, obviously, it did happen because I'm sitting here now in my room in Florida. I look out and I can literally see where the ocean is. I can't see it from I'm on my second story here, but I look right down there. I can see the bayou from here that leads out to the bay, and I'm living in my dream location in a house that I absolutely 100% manifested. And it's a testament. Like if you dream it, you believe it in your heart and you work for it, like you can get it. Whatever you want in this life, like you can create it. So that was a good thing that came out of the marriage to my ex-husband. I should say my first husband, I guess. That makes me sound like a divorcee cougar, but it's my life story, you guys, and we're just gonna run with it. So anyway, so there was that. We moved around a few times. I ended up in Missouri, and I have podcast episodes for days on Missouri, y'all, okay? Because we went from living in Florida to the middle of nowhere, Missouri, in the foothills of the Ozarks, baby. And if you've heard about Ozark people and you've seen the show about Ozark people, it's a real freaking thing. That's a real thing. We lived in a town called Edgar Springs with only like 150 people, 113, I don't know. And people would literally wear overalls, nothing else, overalls, ride their lawn tractors to the gas station corner store where the 12-year-olds were buying chew for Paw. Okay? Yeah. So I went straight out into Hicksville and I then lived out like the property we backed up on was 40 acres, which backed up to the Mark Twain National Forest. Not thousands of acres of national forest, millions of acres of national forest. And the dirt gravel road right on the side of my house went straight back in there where it narrowed into one, and there were miles and miles and hundreds of miles of trails. And there are people that live in that national forest that they camp out in there, they squat, I don't know, they just chill in there. And it's kind of one of those things where it's don't ask, don't tell. Like they know that they're out there, okay? And there's no infrastructure. It's wild there, y'all. It's a totally different world. Like I have stories for days. We had 97 chickens. I had a shotgun by my back door. I went through this whole like homemaker era where I was making everything fresh from scratch and Also, I had started a business at this point and I was doing moderately successful in the online world. I was featured in Success from Home magazine. So that was like my first taste of entrepreneurialism all mixed together, all while I'm like some shotgun toting person that had a cougar on her property and an eagle swooped down and tried to pick my kid up. And then we had wild dogs that would attack. Not only that, but then there were meth heads. And I'm not being judgy. They were literal meth heads that were breaking in on the properties. And they tried to break in the third time while I was there with my kids barricaded in the bathroom upstairs. Okay. Insane. Like I had to shoot at them with a shotgun and it was insane. It was wild. I have stories for days just on Missouri. So there was that. And eventually things did not go well because obviously the marriage with my first husband was not going well. He had PTSD and just in addition to that, just a lot of things going on. And it was not a good time. It was an abusive marriage, which I'm sure some of you know. I've talked about that a little bit. Um, and I was afraid for myself, afraid for my kids if I would leave. And, but it was definitely getting closer. And one of the final straws was when I woke up in the middle of the night and he was standing over me in the dark with a firearm pointed straight at me, not saying anything, not responding to me, just standing over me. And that was like a frequent thing. I don't want to say like it happened all the time, but that was not the only time something like that happened. And so it was dark and it was weird and it was hard. I eventually ended up having to call him into the MPs and he was sent to a training facility for PTSD. But that was not the only thing that was going on. And so beyond just PTSD, and there was some other real things, and I knew that I had to get out. And so one day I took my bug out bags and I called my people. And you guys, I actually had a Google Drive folder uh, where if anything happened to me, one of my military wife friends was given the password and she knew to crack it open and everything, like voice notes, receipts, footage, all the things. Um, Crazy times. So I ended up deciding to get out, and I'm glad that I did. I packed my kids up one day and I left everything behind. And I remember the first time I turned the keys in that ignition, I didn't know what was ahead and I was so fucking scared. I was so scared to leave everything I knew behind, my home, my life, our friends, like my community, the military wife community, everything. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that whatever was ahead was going to be better than what I was leaving behind. And I got out. And so I moved back to my small town in Wisconsin. That was the plan. And literally, while I was on the drive back, while I was leaving, my ex, had cut off access to all of my credit and debit cards. He cut everything off. And so I coasted into my hometown on fumes in my little Ford C-Max hybrid, which used gas and electric. My gas was totally gone. I didn't have any money. Nothing. I had nothing. And my windows were frosted over. It was the beginning of December. My windows were completely frosted over because I didn't have any gas. The heater didn't work. The kids were sleeping, thank God. They were bundled up. They didn't know any of this. And I ended up meeting my dad at a little Saratoga Mini Mart gas station. And that's when I moved back to my hometown. So I started over. I really started the journey on working on myself and taking radical responsibility for my own life. And after I moved back to my hometown, I found out, oh my gosh, surprise, I was pregnant. And oh my God, I decided that I was going to stick on my path and not move back in with my ex husband. And I was going to figure it out. And so we had no contact with him until one day in the fall, right before I had my daughter. I saw a truck pulling into my driveway with a U-Haul, and it was him. So that was interesting. And obviously, that did not end well. In fact, that entire chapter ended with the police being called and me saying, get out. And actually, there was a book that I read and there was one sentence in there that changed my entire life, and I can pinpoint it and I will tell you about it. And that's when things shifted. And so we did eventually get divorced, and I was working on myself, and I learned about creating vision boards, and I learned about online success, and I was kind of figuring everything out. And from there, I ended up, getting moving into my dream neighborhood, which was really cool. And I moved out to this golf course, this bougie ass little golf course area, which I had always wanted to live in since I was a little girl. So that was fun. And I, at the time, lost a bet, ended up on Tinder, and ended up swiping right on Tinder J, which, if you know, when I met him, I was like, this is the guy. I had been on a bunch of different dates and in the dating era. And ironically, right before I met Tinder J, I kind of sort of thought about dating the guy that ended up turning into a situationship in my divorce era, which was hilarious. I'll tell you about that. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you his name, but that was a thing. So anyway, it was just a whole weird era, and he really was my best friend. And I thought we had it great. We ended up, our goals aligned and everything. And one of the first things that I said to him in my Tinder profile was, are you willing to move to Florida? Because I knew where I was going, you guys. Even though I lived in Wisconsin, I knew this is where I'm going to come back to. And why waste time and frig around talking to people if they're not even, why even bother falling for someone if their goals and their values don't match up with long term? Like, don't even waste my time. So that was one of the first conversations we had. And so yeah, so I thought, I was like, he's the one. I heard his voice on the phone. I'm like, I think that's my husband. Oh my gosh. And we ended up getting married 5 months to the day after I swiped right. And I thought it was great. And we had a great time. He was my best friend, and we had a blended family together. And yeah, and we had some adventures. We ended up deciding that we were going to sell all of our stuff and just not buy into the 9 to 5 rabbit hole craziness. And we had 2 years of really fun adventures. And the first year was when I was really struggling with some health stuff, which that's been on and off, and that can be a whole separate podcast. But we decided that we were going to just do something fun and memorable. And so for that whole summer, we ended up camping. We were camping with tents that summer before we bought our pop up. And it was the most fun, memorable summer of my entire freaking life. I loved it. If I could, I would go back in a heartbeat. Like, I will sell everything. Just put me in a glamping tent in the middle of the woods. It was incredible. I have so many stories from that time. And then we ended up upgrading. We ended up in a camper. And then before that, we tried moving to Florida, but then there was a pandemic. So we moved back to Wisconsin, which worked fine because we ended up in this amazing little lake house in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, which was another area. Ever since I was a little girl, I said, I'm going to have a place in the Northwoods and a place by the beach. And so I did it. Like, I lived in the bougie community in my hometown area. I moved to the Northwoods. I had a place in Florida. Like, I freaking did it. So we had a lake house. I was building the business, doing the things, and then we were moving back to Florida. And yeah, in there was some stuff. Marriage is hard. It was tough, and like looking back, I can see where there may have been flags that I wasn't seeing clearly at the time, and just I can talk about that later. But um, yeah, and then we ended up having my youngest. So I have 4 kids as of right now. My oldest, my middle two, and then I have Jackster, which you'll probably hear him popping in and out at times. And yeah, so I had been through some stuff, and we actually went through a couple of miscarriages, and I will tell you that that was really foundationally hard. Honestly, that was probably one of the final pieces of the breaking points up until when things actually broke was we had found out that I was pregnant. You guys, I naturally had triplets for a very short period of time. I had triplets in my body, which is wild to me. And then there were identical twins. And unfortunately, we did miscarry. And so that was hard and sad. And yeah, then we ended up back up in Wisconsin, and I was at my dad's, and he was coming back down here for a job August of 2023. And that's really when my world kind of flipped upside down. And I got a text message that changed everything. And within a month, I was walking into not my dream house. We had just put the deposit down for a dream house in Florida. And instead of walking into my dream house a month later, I was walking into a courthouse and filing for divorce. And that was the craziest plot twist that I never saw coming. But honestly, I'm so freaking thankful for it because it shaped me into who I am today. I would not take it back if I could go back. Like, it wasn't a fun experience to go through, but it was really necessary. It really helped me grow. And I'm not gonna lie, it also gave me some pretty good material because I ended up like, I'm still in the process, but I've started writing a spicy smut novel, like literally based off of my divorce era experience. And in the middle of that, there was a spicy situationship, not with some rando from, not with some rando person. It was, oh yeah, that's fun. That's like a lifelong family friend. And there was an age gap situationship. Oh my God. Like what? What? So there was only a few people that knew about this. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This could be a book. And I'm like, yeah, it could be. And then finally I was like, wait, why isn't it?